Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for being with us. This week, the school board for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District approved a major consolidation plan that will cut the total number of schools in the district by 1/3. These are changes that they're making due to years of declining enrollment. Starting next fall, there will be 23 fewer buildings, and after consolidations, the district will operate 29 fewer schools. District CEO Dr. Warren Morgan said this plan is a way for the district to save money and offer better academic programs. Some parents and teachers have concerns about this major change, including crowded buildings, unique programs potentially going away, and how the moves will impact students with special needs. Today, we've invited Dr. Morgan on the show to talk more about the plan and what's ahead. He joins me now by phone. Dr. Morgan, thank you for calling in.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Joining us here in the studio from the school district, we have Board Chair Sarah Ellicott. Sarah, thanks for being here. Also joining us in studio, we have Allison Jacobs, a parent at Louisa May Alcott School, which will be merged into another building. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, nice being here.
We also have Marilia Sarikos Karapanos, who attends Campus International High School. Thanks for sharing your perspective, Marilia.
Thanks for having me.
Also with us in studio is our education reporter, Connor Morris, who's been covering this story in depth and will share thoughts from the head of the Teachers Union. Connor, thanks for being here.
Hey, yeah, glad to be here.
Now, if you have a question or a comment about the consolidation plan, you can give us a call. The number to do that is 866-578-0903. You can also send us an email. That email is soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram. You can find us there at The Sound of Ideas. Dr. Morgan, I'll start with you. You and Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb have been getting word about this plan out for months. It's called the Building Brighter Futures Plan, and arguing that it's the best path forward for all students. This is in response to big drops in enrollment and a $150 million deficit. So can you explain more about what was happening that led to these changes?
Yeah, first and foremost, glad to be here. Glad to be in the space with our other some parents and students, and of course our board chair. And speaking of the board, this plan is a charge that the board has given me, and also with the vision of our district around our goals and guardrails. And that's what the vision of our district is grounded in, ensuring that all students have a high quality literacy education, a math education, and are college and career ready. And so that's what the board charges me with. That's what I'm evaluated on. And when we look at our district right now, when we think about our high schools, only 59% of our high schools offer career pathways. Only 78% offer college readiness programs. Only 38% of our elementary schools offer enrichment courses like foreign language, band, the ability to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And so we have this disparate experience across our system. And there's some schools that offer great experiences and others that don't. On top of that, when you look at the proficiency rates, even though we've grown over time, this past year was another year where our students grew in terms of academic proficiency. We're well below where the state average is, and the state average even needs work. So there's work we have to do to provide an excellent education within our system, and our board has charged us with that. So building brighter futures is the first step to ensure that every school has a high quality option. And at the same time, we're faced with financial challenges. So it's about how do we give more to our scholars, given our reality, while also dealing with our financial realities. And that's what Building Brighter Futures is about.
Now, you mentioned the board, and we have Sarah here from the board. The board approved the plan this week unanimously. Now, this was after hearing concerns from parents and teachers at a meeting last week. We will hear some of those perspectives today from people we have in studio, and then others that Connor will share with us. What convinced the board that this was the best move for the district, Sarah?
Yeah, so like Dr. Morgan said, this has been a long time effort in the works under the foundation of our goals and guardrails, but also, for me, I've served on the board. I'm one of the longer serving board members. I've been on for almost 7 years, and I hear the same concerns and challenges from families and students across the district. There's always a theme. We need to be educating kids better. We don't have adequate resources for Algebra 1 across the district because of the way our schools are enrolled. We've got half-empty schools. We can't provide programs that we need to provide students so that they can read, write, do math, be ready for college. And that's really, Dr. Morgan mentioned the charge that the board gave him a year ago. That's where we started. And I know that this is a really challenging time. Anytime we make changes, especially significant transformative changes across the district, it's going to be hard. People are understandably concerned about their kids and what it's going to look like. But at the end of the day, the board is convinced that this plan will get us to those goals that we've set for our district, where we are holding ourselves to a higher standard of what we do for kids.
Connor, you were covering yesterday's press conference that was all about this consolidation plan. You've been reporting on the plan since the beginning, since before the vote that's making it official. So what has been the tone of the comments that you're hearing from people from the community speaking up about this?
Yeah, I think anxious is a fair, kind of catch-all. I think a lot of folks are worried, teachers, parents, community members, they're worried about the future. I mean, this is a far-reaching plan that's going to impact the district for years, decades to come. This is calling for uprooting schools that have been in communities for decades. Folks have been working at these buildings for a long time. We've heard from teachers who've worked there for 12 years, 13, 15, 16, 20 years, So there's a lot of concern as well about how prepared the district is for this also. There have been so many questions at board meetings about implementation specifically, and that's really where the rubber meets the road right now, I think. Will there be enough space for special education, for preschool? Will classes be overcrowded in general? What's going to happen to the teachers and the principals that I love? There has been some anger too. Some folks argue this will cause harm. They're closing small schools. Folks say that allows for more one-on-one attention and closer, more familial feel between staff and parents. They say they're going to miss that. There's some worry about long-term repercussions as well. Some folks have told me I'm going to take my kids out of the district. I'm going to go to a private school or a charter school. I don't really like where this plan is potentially going to be sending my kids, because the district has kind of gamed out, well, we're going to close the school. There's another school that's going to accept you, but you can also open enroll wherever else you want to in the district. So
a lot at play there. Definitely
Absolutely.
a lot of moving parts. Speaking of some of those moving parts, we have Marilia here. You're a junior at Campus International High School. What were your thoughts when you heard about the consolidation plan?
So it's not so much the merge itself of Campus International leaving its building and going to John Hay that's the problem, but more so how this International Baccalaureate Special Education program is going to be transferred over there. Because there hasn't been a plan set in stone of how many teachers are going to be transferring to John Hay. And if we don't know which teachers are going to transfer, how can we ensure that students who are on the track to get the IB diploma at the end of their senior year will be able to do it in the best way possible? Because it's one of the hardest education platforms in the world. And it's a privilege that the district has a school where they can offer this, because this is usually for the most privileged, the most rich kids in every country. Even in Ohio, it's mostly for private schools. And the thing students, I feel, are stressing about is how are we going to make sure that how we feel currently in Campus International High School is going to move into John Hay, and how will we ensure that we're going to feel welcome in John Hay? And if we don't like the IB path, we've realized this isn't for us, which doesn't apply to all students, but it does apply to some. How are we going to see if they want to choose a different path in John Hay, and can they make that switch? It's just all about the structure of how education will move on in this school and in all of the schools that are merging or closing. And it's just become something that's currently on everyone's mind all the time, throughout every day.
And Marilia, can you explain to us, for people who might not be aware, what is so special about the International Baccalaureate program compared to a different high school degree program?
Yeah, of course. So I've been in this International Baccalaureate program since I was in kindergarten, and essentially it is a structured education program where it trains students to become world thinkers. So instead of thinking about how am I going to pass the SAT, how am I going to make sure I know enough to pass this test or enough to just get to college, it teaches you how to think outside the box, how to open up your mind and think, okay, if I make this decision, how is this going to affect me and my community and the world at a larger scale? And how can I make my community better? How can I make myself better? How can I impact those around me?
Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it, Marilia. Allison, you have two children at Louisa May Alcott School, which will be closing. You actually live on the east side of Cleveland, but decided to send your kids to this west side school. Tell us about making that decision.
Well, it was an easy decision for me at the time because, that school was just so amazing. Both of my children have special needs, and they were just so willing to take care of my kids, especially, my daughter. She has a chronic illness, and they were so willing to, adapt to her needs there. It was just such a wonderful community there for the school. I mean, they've helped her with her Make-A-Wish walks and volunteered for her. And her teachers, I mean, they're amazing for both of my kids. My son started this year, and it's been difficult for him, having that change, but they've just been so, amazing with him and getting him used to school. His teacher was also my daughter's teacher, and she's amazing. My daughter wouldn't be where she's at today if it wasn't, for her. And I just, it's difficult, going from, a school where I know all of the teachers, I know the principal well. It's, the community loves the school itself. I mean, just the options they have for the school, the safety they have for my kids. I don't know how that's going to be when I'm going from a school that's, 250 kids to over 1,000. I don't know how my kids are going to get the same care in that type of environment.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Allison. What grade is your daughter in?
She's in the 3rd grade.
Okay, and your son just started, so kindergarten?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Connor, we invited Cleveland Teachers Union President Sherry Obrensky on the show today, but she had a conflict, so you interviewed her ahead of the show. What did she have to say about the changes related to families with special needs?
Yeah, so similar to what Allison was saying, she was really concerned about the idea that there might not be enough space for special education students to migrate with their peers at their current school to a new school. The district has said, we're going to try our best to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, for the folks on the call here, but there might not be the specific facilities needed at each individual school that they're transferring to. But they said they're committed to kind of finding that spot for them. But here's what Sherry said about that.
That is completely unacceptable, and we have yet to see how the district intends to make sure that every single student who is supposed to have a seat at a receiving school will have that seat.
And we're hearing this in general a lot there, but there's been a lot of folks that have come up to the mic recently to talk about concerns about that.
Dr. Morgan, what do you say to that? How do you plan to help families with special needs feel supported, like Allison's family, for example?
Yeah, well, one, hearing all of the comments, it's been really great to hear. First, I would say we're committed to all of our kids, whether they receive specialized services or are any type of services in our system. And this is the implementation work, as we do always. Right now, when a student enrolls in our system, and if they have an IEP, we need to review the IEP and we need to find out, where does that family want to attend school, and also figuring out if that school has the facilities, the teaching requirements, and everything that needs to take place. That's what we do now. That's our practice, and we actually have to abide by that by law, particularly for our students with special needs. So nothing will change for that. And I do understand. I think Connor shared the word anxious or anticipation, and I get it. That's what change feels like. And with this, we have to walk through every step of the way in terms of making sure we can do the implementation strongly. And one of the best ways we can ensure that is by now making sure families can make a choice. I know for our students with special needs, families who have a student who's in special needs in a single classroom environment will get a letter this month sharing with them where their placement will be should they choose that placement, but then also talking about the steps ahead in terms of information sessions we'll be having, understanding their choice. The other thing I will say, for the majority of our students with special needs, they will actually move with their colleagues. They will go to the school at the welcoming school, because the majority of our students are in a either receive services in the general education classroom with some push-in support from a teacher. They receive resource pullout. All of that will also be at the welcoming environment. And then a good majority of the single classrooms will follow in the welcoming school. We just don't want to make a blanket statement that that's going to be the case for everyone, because every single case is individual. And so that's why this time of meeting with families, giving them the information is so pivotal. We were meeting with doing training with our choice navigators yesterday. So yesterday there was a room full of choice navigators ready and learning what it means to support the school environment in this time, supporting staff, supporting students around this choice. So I understand the anticipation, but we've got you, we're here, and we're going to walk through this every step of the way to ensure that our families have the options needed for them, whether that's in a larger environment, in the case that we heard from the parent here over at Gallagher, or if they want something a little bit more intimate or a different type of option, we're here to find and navigate those choices for them.
Sarah, is there anything you'd like to add as the representative of the board on that topic?
Yeah, I would add, we've got thousands of special education students across the district. 27% of our student population is students with disabilities. We have a few hundred in Louisa May Alcott, but there are lots of other kids that we are serving in a special education environment in different schools and larger schools. And, in many cases that is going well. And I know there are always challenges, but we can't make these, or Dr. Morgan's team can't make these implementation plans until we actually look, like he said, at the individual needs, but also at where those families end up choosing. Because we can say your welcoming school is Gallagher, but they do have the choice of another school if it meets their needs and if it's what they're looking for. So for us to make a specific implementation plan, and the same goes for our IB program or other programs, right? At the end of the day, there's no scenario where we could have made detailed plans around this, because it's going to come down to where people choose.
And Connor, can you explain for us in your reporting on this, the welcoming school concept, what that means for there to be a welcoming school?
Sure. So the district chooses a school that their old school is going to be kind of merged into, so the staff and will go there, and then students, could go there if they want to. The families get to choose. Of course, CMSD is an open enrollment district, so they can kind of choose wherever. And so that's generally the idea, is they're going to close the old school, or it's going to be merged with this new school, and that's where some of the savings are going to come in, with staff and no longer operating that old building.
Okay. We have a call now from Steve in Cleveland. Steve, welcome to the Sound of Ideas. I understand you have a question about the budget and the deficit, so please go ahead.
Yes, 160 million was the figure you mentioned. Who is that owed to, and why did the board and the school officials allow that to grow to 160 million? Why didn't they do something at 10 million deficit?
Thank you for the question, Steve. Dr. Morgan, the question is, why did you wait until the deficit reached this high level and not act sooner when the deficit was lower?
Yeah, actually, I was going to turn it to to our board chair, in terms of he asked a question in terms of the board and the budget, but I'll answer one thing and just share. Steve, I don't know if you're paying attention to what's happening to every district in this state, but it's the way state funding is set up. So even when I first entered in the system as the CEO, our district was in fiscal precaution. And through the measures we've taken to cut $200 million in the first year, we passed a levy last year. We took more measures to consolidate our calendar from 5 calendars to 1, saving us $27 million a year. We've been doing the work, and now with Building Brighter Futures to take 29 buildings offline will save us $30 million over the next 3 years. This is hard work, and it's work that's saving us dollars. But with each year, with increasing costs, and every time we negotiate a contract and have to pay our teachers more and pay our staff more, that increased the costs. And when the state is reducing the share of dollars they're giving to them, you never catch up. So this deficit is projecting outward. And if we do nothing, if we stay maintaining the same, we will run out of dollars in the future. So this is about planning ahead. I exited the system from Fiscal Watch under the direction and guidance of our board to charge me with doing that. And I intend to ensure that we never get back to that point so that we avoid state takeover. But I'll also turn that to Chair Ellicott as well.
Yeah, I will say Ohio has some of the worst education funding formulas right now across the nation. And we are seeing that across our urban districts and our smaller districts as well. Like Dr. Morgan said, that's something that's outside of our control. we are really set up by the state to be very reliant on levies every few years, right? Where we have to go out to the community and ask for a property tax allocation to support the schools. All of our funding is regulated at the state level. The other thing I will say is, yes, Dr. Morgan shared how we've made cuts over the last several years. We've tried to be much more efficient with our work. The other piece is, the more we keep school buildings open when we don't have the population to support those seats, the more money we're spending, right? Like that's not an efficient spending situation. And when I first joined the board, we did some facilities work at the time, and we had more wiggle room at the time. But the longer we delay keeping buildings open where there are not students in the city and the neighborhoods, and there's a lot of work that we need to do as a city. I know we're doing it in many cases around building up our population, but urban districts across the country are facing these population declines as well. So when we keep buildings open that are 50% enrolled, we're still paying to maintain, heat, clean a building, even if less than half of it is being used. So that's another piece of where we're looking to, this right sizing will allow us to balance our budget.
We did get a question about future student population, several questions about it. Daryl from Euclid writes in, how does the district develop its projections of future student populations? Is it done in-house or done via a private firm? And how often are these projections updated when you're making these kinds of decisions? And Sarah, would you like to address the question first?
I'll turn it over to Dr. Morgan, but we do work internally and also with consultants. And we also operate, like I said, across a national network of districts, right, who are facing the same thing. So we're hearing from our counterparts across the nation as well and learning from them about what they're doing. But Dr. Morgan, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, no, you said it exactly. We worked with an outside demographer to really support this work, and the demographers and actually the consultants we've worked with have worked with Cleveland over time, even not just during my tenure as a CEO, but prior time. And the other thing that they looked at. We can only project as far as the birth rates are now. So one of the reasons why we know birth rates are declining based on the kids that are born now. So we can only project out the kids that were born, recently and what they will be when they become school age kids. We cannot wave a magic wand and say, we predict that these are the kids that are going to be born and what our kids will be 10, 15 years from now, the ones that aren't born, because they're not born yet. But we do know based on data we have now and consistent data that we have now that there's a decline in birth rates. That's the major driver in our enrollment decline. Not that families are choosing charters or private schools. Actually, families have chosen CMSD at a similar market rate or market share over the past 5 or 6 years. And in fact, the charter market here in Cleveland has been losing students at a much faster rate than we have. So it's really the birth rates that have been contributing to our population declines.
Let's talk about those academic opportunities that have been brought up now. And Marilia, you talked a little bit about what you've been studying in your international baccalaureate program at Campus International. Are there things that you wish you would have had access to?
Well, for starters, our arts program has deeply declined in the past few years. We used to have design, visual art, music. I think there was computer science in there that was involved as an art. And over the past few years, teachers have been taken away because they said we had too many art teachers. And slower and slower, students started becoming less interested in the arts because there weren't as many to offer. So now we're left with visual arts and music. And so those programs have been deeply stripped away over the last few years. But also, overall, the importance of IB, I feel, hasn't been stressed, especially at the high school age. I know that Campus International School, the lower school to the high school, has been thriving for years. I mean, it's one of the best schools in the district, I'd say, for elementary school and middle school. But then when it comes to the high school, all of a sudden, the IB program just doesn't get as pushed as it should because it's something truly incredible. And like I said previously, not many people get this opportunity. And for something so special, I feel that it should be something that is spoken more of and spoken on how we can get people into this program. And if high schools and elementary schools next year are going to be sending in faculty, staff, and teachers based off of how many people are enrolling into merging schools and closed down schools that are consolidating, then there has to be some sort of advertisement for how special both IB or Montessori or any specialized schooling is, because otherwise, how are we going to make sure that those programs are going to be held up and even made better?
Is that something you'd like to see in the new school that you end up in? Is that emphasis on those things?
I would say so. I think now that Campus International High School is going to be moving into John Hay, which is a bigger building with better facilities, more facilities than Campus International High School has, I think that this is an opportunity for the district to take a chance on IB for honestly the first time, and make sure that this time when we're emphasizing the IB program that we do it correctly, so that in the future more kids can get into this program and more kids can take the opportunity that I was given.
Allison, how about you? What improved offerings, that's a phrase that's been used a lot, would you like to see for your kids?
I'd be open for anything because I've mostly just heard of cuts, losing teachers, especially in the special needs. You know, I haven't heard too many of what they're going to be implementing in this new program to help our kids out. You know, what is going to be available, and for my kids, are they going to have more aides in the class? Are they going to have more help? I mean, I don't see how you have such a large increase of kids in one setting. You know, what help are the teachers going to get? You know, I know even in the smaller, the one teacher in my child's school, you know, Reese Schumann, she, you know, has all of these kids on her own and only a few aides. You know, that's tough in that setting. You know, what are they going to do to help, you know, these kids out more, you know, because they need help and they're not getting enough help as it is now. So now when you're having such a larger setting, you know, what's going to be implemented to make sure that they get the help that they need.
Dr. Morgan, would you like to respond to that and talk about opportunities that will be offered?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, I want to go back to what Marilia was saying, and I'm smiling as Marilia is speaking because she's explaining the crux of why we had to do Building Brighter Futures. And a couple of things on the IB, and then I'm going to get to the opportunities on the last question. But in our IB high school last year, 0 students earned the IB diploma. I remember speaking to a senior last year when I was doing rounds and you know, speaking to all the students, and she said, I can't even earn my IB diploma because the courses aren't offered. And the courses aren't offered because we don't have the enrollment. 0 students earned it last year, 3 the year before. So we have an IB in name only, but we don't have an IB program. So I couldn't agree more. And I think this is the opportunity for this program to grow and thrive. We've actually seen more students from Campus International Elementary going to the John Hay campus, specifically science and medicine. That's usually the feeder pattern. This way they can actually continue their education through the continuum. So we have work to do to grow it and build it, but I couldn't agree more. And we need to stop having schools with just the name only. You know, excited for Davis, you know, currently, which is Davis Aerospace and Maritime, where that program will continue on in the new Benjamin O. Davis Junior High School. But the one thing about the aerospace and the aviation degree or the credential, we only have had 6 students who've gone on to get that credential in the time it's been open. So we just need to make sure that it's not just about the name of the school or the quote unquote experiences they have. What are students actually leaving with? And that's what we need to do through Building Brighter Futures. And quickly to that last point, that's why we want to ensure all of our families have those options and choices. We do need to ensure, you know, in this phase where families are making a choice, that they understand the programs that are available to them and also what's possible as we grow over time. And I ask parents, as they're asking the questions now, ask us the questions about how students are actually thriving, not only in school through proficiency, but ask us the questions of what they're doing afterwards to be set up for success. Because just with as much passion people are advocating for their schools and their placements in their seats, and we hear that's very important to us, we want to ensure that same push and advocacy comes for ensuring higher proficiency rates in our system and ensuring more students are college and career ready once they graduate.
Connor, in your reporting, can you talk to us not only about disparities that you've seen, but you also spoke with a teacher who is excited about what's to come?
Yeah, so I mean, I think regardless of concerns about the implementation of the plan, tons of folks agree that something needs to change, right? Like even the teachers union president who we heard who was critical, she did say she agrees there's too many schools, we need to consolidate to improve the quality of education. I think a ton of people recognize that status quo is not cutting it. Students are not graduating ready for college or a good career, as some of the officials here mentioned. Tons of students struggle with just the basics of English and math. And this is not just a CMSD problem. This is across urban schools across the country. But, just some quick stats, like just a third of third graders are proficient in English and math on the state test. More than half of students are considered chronically absent, so they're not showing up to school regularly. The combined 4 and 5 year graduation rate's just 78%. And there was a former teacher, Vincent Stokes, who spoke at a recent meeting, and he was talking about some of these disparities. He was saying, there are some schools of the district that, they get 5 out of 5 stars on the state report card, and then there's some that get, 2 out of 5 that they're really struggling to provide the things that kids need. And I think we've got a quote from him here.
It makes sense to merge schools so students at JFK finally get the same opportunities as students at John Hay. CMSD has run a semi-private school inside a public district for decades. The Haves, Campus International, Bard, and John Hay thrived. The have-nots, Bethune, Dickens, and Collarwood were left to survive on fumes.
And those are what's known as, the John Hays, the John Adams here in Cleveland. Those are what's known as magnet schools, that attract a lot of kids from across the region. That's the same thing with urban districts across the country. They're really trying to focus on, well, we're doing it right here. We don't want to mess up this model that's doing well, and it's attracting all these high-performing students. But I think what the district's trying to get at here, which is the crux of modern education, public education, is how do we get that at more schools?
Sarah, as we wrap things up here, we want to talk a bit about some changes that will be happening with staffing. We did learn at the press conference yesterday that 24 principals of Cleveland schools will be displaced and other employee jobs may be effective. Can you explain exactly what that means? Because it's been emphasized that these are not necessarily layoffs.
Yeah. Dr. Morgan's team is really working to identify where people can be placed, even if they are being removed from their current role. So the hope is to reduce the number of layoffs as much as we can. The reality is there will be some people who will not remain in the district. And, some people may choose that may be their time to retire as well. And I can let Dr. Morgan speak to that more. But I do want to say, something else around the resourcing of the schools. And our charge as a board to Dr. Morgan when we built goals and guardrails was not only on that academic side around the goals, but the guardrails where we said we need more enrichment opportunities. We want to protect arts, and we can't do that when we have under-enrolled schools. So this work that he's done to build a proposal that the board has accepted is going to allow us to have more of those opportunities. And, on the Campus International front, Dr. Morgan shared that many of our K-8 Campus International students do end up going to John Hay. Marilia, you shared that we've got to have a stronger IB high school. Many of our Campus International K-8 students and families also take their kids to private school when they move on to high school. And it's a vicious cycle, but it has to be said that when people take their kids out of the district, the dollars go away from the district, right? So we've always got this challenging situation, and someone wise once recently told me, actually, there are 2 things that people hate: change and the way things are. And we can't change the way things are unless we change, right? And that is incumbent on all of us. And I know it's difficult for folks to hear from me as the board chair to say, hey, please stay in the district, bear with us. But please stay in the district, bear with us. We've been working hard over the last several years. This is not just a moment. This is a several-year effort of building a better district that offers what our children and our families deserve. That's what's behind all this, and we're committed to doing absolutely our part to deliver on what we've said we're going to deliver.
Dr. Morgan, would you like to share a final thought on that?
Actually, Chair Ellicott, shared all the points really on the staffing pieces. We are really working with each of our staffing groups, whether they're union, non-union, on the clarity of the plan, Those who have been displaced have been notified at this point that they have been displaced, but there are, as Chair Ellicott mentioned, could be other options for them. So the best thing we need right now is for families to make a choice. That choice portal opens up on January 5th. And it will be open through February 27th. We need families to make a choice. We will help you as you're navigating your choices because that will help determine the enrollment in every school, which determines the budget, not only in schools, but at central office, because we have to make decisions at central office. And that will also help us determine the staffing. So stick with us. I know change is hard, but we're here to navigate it every step of the way. And we want your questions. I was taking questions this morning that people had, and I said, it's okay to have questions, and we're going to get you those answers. And so really look forward to working with our leaders as well as the entire community as we navigate this change together.
As we wrap this up, we have an email now from Kay that I'll share. Kay says, Marilia is the future. The school board can't fail her or others in the program. Kay says she's disappointed there's no plan for these outstanding Cleveland achievers. Marilia, she says she's wishing you continued success. It's possible you could be the school board president one day, she says. Do you have a response to that?
Thank you for that. I think by acting in ways of activism for what I believe in and what I hope to see, that more people would be willing to take the chance and take a stand of bravery and do the same, so that not only my future can be impacted, but everyone in the district's future could be impacted as well.
I want to thank our panel for being with us here today. Marilia Siricos Carapanos, junior at Campus International High School. Thank you very much. We
Thank
have
you.
Allison Jacobs, a parent of students at Louisa May Alcott School. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sarah Ellicott, the board chair for Cleveland Metropolitan School District. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And Dr. Warren Morgan, CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
As well as Connor Morris, who's been following this very closely. Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, I'm here too. Thank you.
We can find more of Connor's reporting at ideastream.org, so make sure you check that out. I know you'll be continuing to follow this.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll wrap up the year in food with 2025's final installment of the menu. Perfect. Welcome back to The Sound of Ideas. This is Stephanie Haney. We appreciate you staying with us. It's time once again for the menu. This is our bi-weekly series where we dig into Northeast Ohio's food scene with the help of the folks over at Cleveland Magazine. Now, the end of 2025 is quickly approaching, and this is our final installment of the menu this calendar year. So we're going to get to this. We're going to wrap up some of the best food stories and trends of 2025 and look ahead to 2026. So with me in studio, we have Dylan Stewart, the editor of Cleveland Magazine. Dylan, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And we are very excited to welcome Christina Rufo, reporter at Cleveland Magazine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to dig into this. Now, if you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org. All right, we're going to start with the highlights. And let's talk about your, give me one quick favorite, new restaurant, type of food trend that you want to highlight. Dylan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, one of my favorite bites of the year was Centro Via 25, and actually I got to go with the folks from the show and eat there. We had a great episode on that, so certainly check that out. But it's just it was such a cool place to not only try food from El Salvador and Dominican food and things like that, but also just get to talk. It's such an open setting where you can talk to each vendor from the kiosk and learn so much. The other thing that I think that we really tried to highlight in our November issue was the continued push toward plant-based food and toward vegan food. From Beet Jars sandwiches, Cloak and Daggers accompaniments with their great cocktails, and then even the kind of the OGs like Tommy's in Coventry. I think that is something that you're going to continue to see more and more people get into. And as a carnivore, some of my most surprising bites have come from tasting menus or taking that risk to eat veg forward food, and so that's something I'm continually excited about.
I will tell you what, I had the Bravocado sandwich at Beet Jar. I am not a coconut girl, but the coconut bacon really hit for me, and that was a surprise for me. Now, Christina, you recently Well, not recently, but throughout the year, you highlighted Girl Dinner, which really had a moment this year. Tell us about that.
So, girl dinner is a TikTok trend, and seeing sort of these TikTok trends manifest in real life is really exciting. So, when you go out and you look at a menu and go, oh my gosh, I've seen that. That's really cool. And so, girl dinner is like a small bite meal. And so, like Georgetown, High Five, Steak, they've all been kind of incorporating that into their menu with either like a Caesar salad and a side of fries, a drink, maybe a sweet treat to end it. And it's just really fun to go out and see what you're seeing online happen in your community.
And something recent that you featured was Trends that came out just this week on Monday. Why did you highlight members only bars and lounges?
I think hospitality is evolving. And with these members only groups, they're really focusing on customer service, which is something that's kind of been lost nowadays. And so with like No BS, with the Warrior Club, with the Writer's Room, it gives people a chance to have a really genuine experience when they go out and feel like, you know, the owners know their name, their server knows their drink, and they just really, it's worth paying for that experience and kind of that privacy as well.
Does that kind of tie into the concept of entertainment at all?
I think entertainment is kind of different, but that's, you know, going out to a space where you can drink but also do more than just drink. I think people kind of want to do more than just sit at a bar nowadays, especially for people that aren't drinking, to go out like at Birdie Town or at the arcade on Detroit or Pins Mechanical, Five Iron. They all do that very well, that you can hang out with your friends and drink, but also you can sort of level out that space.
Sure, play some golf if you're at Birdie Town or with some of these other establishments. Now, Dylan, along with exciting openings, we did also see some closures in the restaurant business, and hospitality is a competitive landscape to navigate. So, what are some of the most notable closures from 2025?
Yeah, so I think downtown we saw some major closures. Rebar was a smaller space, but one that was really beloved by both people heading on their way to, that's on East 9th Street, and it was on East 9th Street, and both people heading to the stadiums, grabbing a quick bite or a drink before, but also there was a dance scene that was really, that really loved that space and activated that space. So I think that's a sad one. Of course, Velvet Dog, just at the beginning of the year, closed, and that was an iconic place on the west side of downtown. But, also the spot on Lakeshore was one that's on the far east side in Mentor that I was really excited about. They were bringing some Eastern European influences and things like that to brunch, which was really fun. Gingy in Ohio City was another one that, they were once one of our best restaurants, and they were doing some great ramen dishes and things like that, but just unfortunately fizzled out there. So yeah, a lot of things to be excited about, but we certainly miss a lot of those places.
Let's talk about some of the unique ways that you've featured different establishments throughout 2025. Top place to watch a WNBA game being the W Sports Bar, or the best boba party pack at the Mooncap Boba Cafe. So why shout out things in that very specific, unique way?
Well, certainly for our Best of Cleveland issue, which many of those things come from, we have our reader picks that really determine our best pizza, best tacos. And so when some of the people look at our editors' picks, they're like, well, that's so specific. They're the only ones who do it. Well, of course, it's superlatives, really. And it's just fun ways to find these hidden gems, these unique things. And we kind of almost look at it as like a time capsule of the year. And as well as sort of this way to kind of highlight some of the lesser known establishments that aren't going to get thousands of reader votes, but really deserve some shine. So that's our attempt to do that.
Now, Christina, you had an interesting article published in the December issue of Cleveland Magazine highlighting some favorite holiday food traditions. So walk me through what you wrote about, starting with cassava cake.
Mm-hmm. So Cleveland is such a melting pot of cultures, so I really wanted to highlight different traditions from everyone's, neighborhood. So the cassava cake at Tita Flores is a Filipino dessert made with grated cassava root and a leche flan and an ube drizzle. And the employees there told me that, that's really hard to find the cassava in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. So when they get the chance to make it, it's like a taste of home for the holidays, and everyone wants to be home for the holidays. And then with the Feast of the Seven Fishes, that's, the Italian tradition for Christmas Eve. You get as many fish dishes as you can piled in there, the smelts, the bacala, the mussels, clams, calamari. And being Italian myself, that, I remember going to the store and buying that stuff with my mom. And Euclid Fish Co. told me about, how they see families come in generation after generation, sometimes only for that season, for that time of year, to get the fish that they need. And, the little kids have their shopping lists. And I just feel like those traditions, although they can evolve and change over the years, they still, hold a lot of significance. And then we have Larder making their Hanukkah latkes, which are potato cakes the size of your head. And he tops them. Jeremy Mansky puts on whatever you want. You can put on, I think they said, like smoked meats, anything. They even have like a dessert option for that. And then with the Kwanzaa celebration, Prime Meats does all sorts of different meat options. Of course, they told me they have oxtail, goat curry, lamb shanks. And so even if it's for Kwanzaa or a different holiday tradition, they make sure that they have everything in stock for whoever needs it.
Now, we touched on holiday bars on a previous installment of the menu, but that was before the holiday season was here, and we are in it now. So I'll ask you, Dylan, are there some new pop-up options in Cleveland for people who just love a Christmas bar?
Certainly. I have the OGs really around the corner, and as the years have gone on, it seems like there's really one everywhere, whether it's your local bowling alley, or the local dive. Certainly we have Christmas Bar in the Flats, which has continued. But I know that Christina did some reporting on the newer one, so if I could toss it over to her.
Please.
We have Holly Dolly Christmas at Jolene's. That's their first this year. And then there's also going to be a Y2K retro Christmas bar theme at Erie and Vine in Willoughby. And I mean, like Dylan said, I think every bar, whether they say they're a pop-up bar or not, are doing some sort of Christmas, special for the holidays, special menu, decorations. It's just a good way to get festive and go out with your friends.
Now we'll talk about New Year's Eve celebrations. That's something that's going to be coming up on people's minds very quickly. So I'll start with you, Dylan. What's going on?
Well, I have an infant and a 3-year-old, so I like to, I'll get some local beers, and some local food, and, do it up kind of at home. I always like to go to, our tradition sort of go to Ohio City Provisions and get a big steak, and you've got Market Garden there, and I love their cider, which kind of feels, champagne-y, so that's kind of my tradition. So as I've gotten older, that my New Year's Eves have gotten a little more calm. I think Christina's the one that's going to be out on the town for us this year.
Yeah, Christina, what are the options?
Yeah, so I am so excited. New Year's Eve is my favorite holiday with, the fresh start, new beginnings. I'll be downtown because I think that's the best place to be for New Year's Eve. I'm going to be at Windows on the River, checking out the aquarium, silent disco, stilt walkers, excited for a night of fun food. And then the other places I was looking at and highlighting in my New Year's Eve guide, Bourbon Street Barrel Room, Mardi Gras theme, Metropolitan at the 9, Under the Big Top circus theme, CMA Awards Night at the Farm, Fire and Ice at the Aviator. I think although New Year's Eve is a theme in and of itself, having extra things to add on and look forward to when you're going out really adds to the experience.
Sure. All right, we've got about a minute left. We want to look ahead to 2026. Christina, is there anything on your radar that you'll be reporting on?
Not quite. I mean, just the micro trends that are evolving. I mean, with social media, I think every trend kind of gets posted and moves along pretty quickly. So it really is probably just going to be a quick
Gotta be fast.
year.
All right, Dylan, what about for the rest of the magazine?
I'm really seeing Ohio City and downtown have big changes coming up on the food scene. We're going to be back with Jaja again after, there was that car that hit the building and shut them down for a while. But they're going to have a refreshed menu. Lay Burger is going to be underneath, so that's exciting. You're also going to see the Noble Beast beer garden open up, and
Ooh.
yeah, so that's really exciting. I love Noble Beast. And then Cordelia moving into Hingetown, that's probably the biggest opening of the year. We don't know exactly what that's going to be, but Aaliyah had these sort of like open flame grills. I think they could do something really interesting with that, but I don't know that that's what they're going to do. Whatever they do is going to be great. And you're also seeing shifts downtown with Cosm, the sort of sphere-like sports experience, Urban Meyer's Pint House, a lot of new things that are going to gear toward the sports fans.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for the menu for 2025. We have Dylan Stewart with us here, the editor from Cleveland Magazine, and Christina Rufo. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it. All right, to get the last word on today's topics, you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Yesterday, we talked about people trying to demystify death, and Deborah wrote in via email, "In the Jewish tradition, we have certain customs we observe. We usually bury our loved ones within 48 hours. We need 10 men to say Kaddish, prayer. We also say the prayer on the Hebrew yearly on the anniversary of the death. We sit Shiva up to a week after the burial. The mourners can't do any work during the Shiva period. We go back to society by taking a short walk together." Thank you for sharing those rituals with us, Deborah. And Stephen suggested a segment idea. He wrote that he would like to see a future program about talks about death with dignity. He says he personally doesn't want his latter years spent sitting in dirty pajamas with a soiled diaper in an elder home. It's about quality of life, and if he can't have a decent quality of life, he would like to be able to make a choice as to whether to continue on. Thank you very much, Stephen, for sharing that thought. That's a topic we will try to explore. Tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas, it's the Friday Reporters Roundtable with Mike McIntyre. He'll be joined by IdeaStream's Zaria Johnson and Connor Morris, and also State House News Bureau Chief Karen Kessler down in Columbus. Thanks for being with us here on The Sound of Ideas and keeping the conversation going. Mike McIntyre will see you tomorrow, and I'll see you back on Monday.